stationary points are points where the gradient is 0. And we want to investigate some stationary points on these graphs. This is y, this is x, this is y, and that's x. That's y-axis, and that's x-axis. Okay, so if a tangent is drawn at point P, that tangent will be flat. What I mean is, suppose I draw a tangent at this point P, okay? This tangent will be flat, so the gradient at this point is 0, okay? So the value of y is neither increasing or decreasing at this point. Hence, we can call this point a stationary point because we're not going uphill or downhill. We are stationary. So I'll just write that statement here. So a tangent drawn at point P, a tangent, and these are just observations based on what we can see. A tangent drawn at point P will be flat, and so the gradient at this point will be 0. And we can write this using mathematical notation. All right, we can say f dash x at this point is equals to 0. Okay, and let's look at point Q. Q is also another stationary point because if I draw a tangent at this point, so if I draw a tangent at this point, it will be flat, and at point Q, y is neither increasing or decreasing. So the gradient is 0. Okay, it's a stationary point. So we can say that point Q is another stationary point. And this is because y is neither increasing or decreasing. Y is neither increasing or decreasing. Hence, which means the gradient or the slope at this point is equals to 0. Okay. How about point R? What do we notice? Point R is also a stationary point because a tangent drawn at this point will be flat. So the gradient at this point is 0. So if we draw a tangent at this point, suppose this is our tangent drawn at this point, we can see that this tangent is flat, horizontal. So the slope of this tangent will be 0. Okay, remember these are the points that I'm referring to. That point here, this point here, and that point there. Okay, so we can say that point R is also a stationary point. Because a tangent drawn at this point will be flat. So the gradient at this point is 0. So the gradient at this point is 0. Okay, how do we write this mathematically? We write it that way. Now we can generalize. Obviously, by observing, we can see that at each of these stationary points, the gradient is 0. Okay, so we can generalize and say that so stationary points occur when the gradient is equals to 0. So stationary points occur when the gradient or the slope is equals to 0.